Great. And again, thanks for your patience. It is so exciting though, isn't it? I'm seeing people, hey, I'm from Atlanta, you're from San Francisco, how are you? You know, I had this question about you. It is exciting and I love that energy. We'll have a great lunch break and use that time. Grab that person you were talking about with, hey, I want to catch up, I hear your kid's in college, or good Lord, what's that union doing these days, Joe Sullivan? Can you tell me that? So this is exciting. We've got two sort of related presentations, one this morning and one this afternoon with Charles Butler. And you all live HR, talent management, and it is such a growing field. And so we're going to kick off this morning with a presentation by Liz Joyce from CEB, and really talking about how we strategically align our HR resources with our long-term priorities. And as you're going to find out, so much of what we do in terms of our hiring is becoming more and more data-driven. It is captured in what does HUD need, what does Ochiko need in terms of covering our talent gap, achieving our mission, how do we translate into our hiring plan. And Liz's company has done some amazing research in this. They focus on best practices. Liz herself has over 12 years of experience in this area, working for the government, working for a company that assists the government. And you may have heard her, she is doing amazing things also when it comes to engagement and EVS. She is actually doing presentations to each HUD program office, incredibly, simply super informative. So she's going to really bring her knowledge base, her talents, and talk a little bit about strategic planning when it comes to HR. This afternoon, we're going to link that to what actually Ochiko is doing real time with a presentation by our colleague Charles Butler. So this is really an exciting topic, and I'm going to turn it over to Liz. And also, she does have a handout. It's making its way around. You don't need it right away. It is on the monitor, but if you do want one afterwards or want to take notes, it is going around. And I'll turn it over to Liz.
Hi, everybody. I'm going to have my phone up here just for time because I'm a time cop when it comes to presentations, and I like to start and end on time. So bear with me. I'm not checking my text messages, I promise. So thank you guys for having me here. It's a pleasure. Again, I'm Liz Joyce. I'm with the CEB, which is formerly known as the Corporate Executive Board. We have spent time with HR organizations across the globe and over the last 10 or so years with the federal government in the US, really understanding what is happening, what challenges you're trying to solve, and what organizations are doing to solve those challenges. The premise of our organization is that there is no challenge at the broad level that another HR professional hasn't dealt with in the past. So whether it's succession management, it's workforce planning, it's engagement, there are things that other organizations have done that you can learn from, so that you're making really good decisions as quickly as possible. Because I don't know about you guys, but I don't have any time to waste, right? So what we brought here to the table is really what we're seeing across driving strategic alignment. So what organizations are doing to make that critical connection with the business so that you're informing your HR priorities with the needs of the organization. At the end of the day, HR is the champion of talent in the organization. That's what we do. And what we need to understand is what does the business need and align our priorities as HR to do just that. So that's really where we're going to start today in driving strategic alignment. Again, most people are, I think the handouts are being passed around as we go around. I will warn you, some of our slides are small writing. That's what CEB does. We like to pack a lot onto a page. So bear with us and ask questions as we go through, okay? So let me give you a little bit of roadmap of what we're going to be talking about today. So first, we're going to talk about HR business alignment. What does that look like? What is it? Why is it important? And quite frankly, why is it hard? It's not easy for us to really understand all the things that are happening across our business and pull it into one. So we're going to uncover a little bit about what we're seeing across our global organizations and even specifically in federal HR as to what's driving some challenges. The second thing we'll talk about is the path to strategic alignment. So that's that center section there. What are organizations doing to drive strategic alignment? What are they doing to capture all that information and inform the programs that we have? And that's going to really connect a lot to what you'll hear later from Charles about the HR business partner role. We'll touch on that quickly through this conversation. And then the last piece is the critical HR connection points. As we shift our operating model to become more strategic, there are different roles that people play, all that are important, and that all create some tensions between each other. So the learning and development, deep expertise versus the HRBPs, how does that actually work, and what are organizations doing to solve those challenges? The one thing I will note about the presentation today is it is research-based. It is, generally speaking, what we're seeing across organizations, and of course, HUD has a different culture and has a different set of experiences that we need to navigate. And this is what the challenge is to the room here. How are we taking what we're learning from the research and the best practices and adapting our approach to make us best in class and strategic while adapting and understanding what's happening across HUD and living within the HUD environment? Does that sound like a good game plan? I heard that you guys were really social, so I'd love to have conversation throughout. So don't hesitate to stand up and ask some questions. There's a mic here as well. We'll also pull up for questions during the presentation too. So let's go ahead and get started on page 3. We're going to skip one page forward and really talk about what's happening. So this is probably a no-duh slide for you guys. Talent is critical to mission success. You need people in order to deliver on your strategic priorities for the organization. And that's what we're seeing across our globe as well. On the left-hand side of the page, talent ranks the top priority for CEOs. It's one of their biggest things that they're focusing on. It's their biggest challenge that they're addressing right now. It's human capital, so that's number 1. That's above operational excellence, innovation, customer relationships. Those things that we typically think of as main priorities for the head of an organization are actually secondary to the talent concerns that they have. Am I going to have the staff that I need? Do I have the talent that I need for the future? Are they positioned well? All of the things that HR is responsible for actually navigating for them. On the right-hand side of the page, there's no surprise that talent's a big concern because they're actually accounting some of the issues that they have from a business perspective from the lack of talent or the challenges of talent that they have. So here's on the side of the right-hand side of the page, this is the percentage of executives who agree that talent challenges resulted in key strategy challenges. Now, granted, these are some of the private sector type metrics like financial targets, ability to innovate type things, but if you think about how that translates into what you do, not having the right people makes us challenged in delivering on the fair housing objectives, or doesn't help us with, if we don't have the right people, we can't deliver on some fair housing subsidies. Those sort of things that we need people to actually deliver our work and our mission, right? So it makes sense that they're seeing some concerns and they're seeing some challenges on the back end. And it's no surprise that OPM has actually graphically connected the strategic alignment with the rest of the HR world. So let me show you on page 5 what the HCAF system, which you're probably very familiar with, looks like. So starting on the planning and goal setting on the left-hand side of the page, strategic alignment. This is where we're going to focus most of our conversation today. Essentially, this is where we get what does the business need, what are the talent needs of the organization, how do we capture all of that information, and then feed it into the implementation in that center page of the various programs that we do, right? We shouldn't be doing career pathing for career pathing. We shouldn't be doing engagement for engagement. We should be doing career pathing. We should be doing engagement. We should be doing succession management, hiring, staffing, learning and development. Insert name of any talent program in order to get the talent that we need to deliver on the business objectives, right? Business objectives first, program second to deliver on those. And the last piece on the right-hand side, evaluating results, we wouldn't have OPM without the accountability piece, of course. And this is a really critical thing because it creates this cyclical effect of, are we getting what we need? Then let's make sure we go back and readjust our strategic priorities, let's adjust our programs, and continue that cycle. Everything that HR does is a marathon and not a sprint. But it all goes back to the priorities of the business. That make sense? How many of you guys think it's hard to really understand what your business unit partner that you serve needs? How many people think that's hard to really understand? Is it hard? I see a couple of hands coming up. Yep. So it can be pretty hard, and that's what we're hearing from our organizations, that it's really hard to actually dig in to say, what is your strategy, what is the impact of the talent, so that I can plan forward. Not reaction, but plan forward, right? And what we're seeing from HR organizations is that there's actually mixed results on how well we're doing from strategic planning in general. Now, this isn't HUD specific, this is actually global numbers, and that's what we're showing on page 6. So 2 stories. On the left-hand side of the page, we're getting low scores in effectiveness, so our ability to be effective at that strategic connection to the business. About 42% of business leaders are saying that HR is ineffective. So, 4 out of 10, that's a pretty big number if you're thinking about global organizations. On the right-hand side of the page, there's a couple reasons why our business leaders are saying that there's problems in delivering against strategic objectives. One of them we see on the right-hand side of the page is the lack of integration with business needs. Really understanding what their long-term strategy needs are, really understanding what the talent implications are, and then developing the programs that you need in order to solve those. We tend to do things because they're good HR things to do, which makes sense because we're not getting necessarily a lot of input from the business at times. And at times they're just giving you reactionary, fill this position, which doesn't give us what their long-term priorities are. The second issue that they ranked was inability to justify HR investments. And what you see here, and the root cause of that issue, is that if we can't convince the business that the programs that we're standing up are for them, then they don't want to invest in it, right? They need to see the business outcomes the business needs for the programs that we're doing for HR. Because we're not doing these for HR's sake. We're doing these for the talent, right? And the last piece is other, so all other different pieces that come in that cause challenges with integration of the business. So on page 7, we get into what are some of the breakdowns specifically that we see in HR strategic plans, right? Now this can be general priorities that we know of. This can be written down Word documents that we put together that have glossy covers. Regardless, what we're talking about with strategic plans are what are our priorities, what are the programs that we're going to go after, and what are our goals and objectives, right? So down in the bottom, you can see the breakdowns. We identified 6 from our member organizations. So the first one, strategy in a vacuum. There's minimal or no alignment with the changing business objectives. What is the business priorities? What's different about it? And how are we realigning the talent to that? Number 2, an unstrategic strategy, focusing on tactical as opposed to strategic issues. Now, granted, there is a time and a place for the tactical issues. If we're not processing things appropriately or if we're not executing in a certain time period, we do need to focus on that as well. But our strategic plan should be strategic. Where is our direction? What is the direction of our talent and where we're going? 3, function-centric. A lot of strategic plans for the HR organization focuses on the function as opposed to the talent. So the overemphasis you see there on the HR function as opposed to the talent needs. An absence of metrics. We love to be metrics-oriented. The challenge that we have in HR is that we tend to be transactionally metrics-oriented. How many things do we process? What was the time to hire? Those sort of things, and stay away from the quality and the delivery, the ROI on the business objectives. An unclear accountability, lack of clarity or accountability for accomplishing HR objectives. I think this one is tricky, the last one in particular, because the things that we do require other people in the organization to actually help us deliver on them. We can set a workforce plan, and if our business leaders don't want to do what the workforce plan says, then we're not going to be able to achieve our objectives, which emphasizes why we need to actually make the connection and the integration with the business needs, right? So really focusing on the business first, focusing to create a plan that reflects their needs that they can see themselves in. So I want to show you what we're seeing as far as organizations and what we call the 3 C's of effective HR planning on the next slide. And then we'll go to one more slide and then we'll pull up for questions or comments as to what you're seeing in your organization and what struggles that you have. So starting on the left-hand side of the page, how we see effective HR organizations flow their strategic planning is starting with the corporate strategy development. Challenges in the blue box here. HR is typically underrepresented in the earliest strategy sessions. Business leaders make uninformed talent decisions, and there's no clear articulation of business strategy. When I was at my old organization in the federal sector, I don't know how many times people would come to me and say, I need 3 GS-15s. Why? I see Ned Hud nods. I'm sure that you guys have experienced this as well. They hadn't really thought about the business strategy. They hadn't thought about the talent implications. They were thinking about the fire that was burning underneath them, and they needed to get that stopped. My job was to help them think strategically about their talent needs and what they actually needed. But I need to be there up front. I need to have the conversation with them to understand what their priorities are so that we're making the right plans to deliver on that strategic objective so we can stop the fire before it ever starts. So the first C is the context. How can we keep HR strategy relevant to the business objectives? The strategy development is in the second page, in the second part of the column. HR strategy does not reflect the current or changing business talent requirements. HR strategy is exhaustive, unprioritized to-do list. How many of you guys think that you have too many things on your plate to do right now? Too many priorities? That is typical, and it's hard. You don't have enough time, you don't have enough resources, and people are asking you to do a lot. And that's what we're seeing across every HR organization. We're the people that do stuff, right? And that's great for us. But when you're actually thinking about being strategic, you have to move away from just executing against everything and actually prioritizing what we need to do and what we can leave to a later time. Not everything is a priority if you don't have any priorities. HR strategy fails to take into account broader inputs and industry-level trends. We tend to look insular about what's happening in an organization and not really thinking about external. I know a couple of the big external things that you probably want to think about moving forward. The administration transition is going to be one big one, right? How is that actually going to impact what HUD does? How is that going to impact how you need to position talent? How to help your CIOs deal with the changing IT needs? How do you help your finance folks deal with the changes with the new executive orders that are coming out on integration, right? Those are big talent impacts that we need to keep in mind as we're looking across our organizations and helping our organizations serve their talent. And creativity, how can we create impactful strategic insights, right? It's not just about do what we've done always. It's about taking all of these inputs and being creative. We know HR, right? We know how to do L&D. We know how to recruit for the right talent. Being creative in this environment to deliver on those talent implications is what we're here to do. And it gives us a huge opportunity. As long as we're upfront with them, we get involved early, and we're able to be creative about what we want to do. And then the execution, some of the challenges here in the grayish box. HR strategy is too long and fails to highlight the key initiatives required to achieve end state. I don't know how many times I've seen HR plans that say we're going to get people in the right place at the right time. And I'm like, what does that mean? What does that mean? How do you know if you have the people in the right place at the right time? What does that look like? It's too broad. It's too general for us to actually do anything with. So we need to get a little bit more tailored to it. HR strategy is vague, and it doesn't really translate into actionable team objectives. And the bottom one here, employees fail to understand and become engaged with the HR strategy. And this goes back to not just HR talent, not HR employees, but all employees. Because the HR strategy is for the organization. It's the things that you do, the things that you put into place that your managers are going to engage in, that your employees are going to engage in, that the people that you're recruiting are going to go through when you do onboarding programs, right? We need to get them involved in the strategies that we're setting. They don't necessarily need to be a part of every bit of the development, but they certainly need to buy in so you're executing against it appropriately. So on the bottom, cascade, how can we bridge the gap between the strategy development and the execution? How can we make sure that those connect together so the things that we're doing every day connect to what we really need and ultimately connect back to the business strategy? I will tell you, as you do this and you get better at it, you will find that you get a better seat at the table, whether you're in a business unit or you're at the executive level. You will become a part of their organization as an advisor to them, right? It takes time. I want to say and emphasize that this is not an easy thing to do. I applaud you guys for starting to go down this path. And quite frankly, I work across the board with all of our government organizations that have memberships with us. And you're one of the first that are really trying to do this and do this differently. And I love it because it's what we're seeing our private sector organizations doing. And we have a really great capability and opportunity here to do it as well. Let me show you what it looks like when we actually move from a transactional type shop to a much more strategic shop. What we're not saying is that we don't need to have more people doing the work necessarily. Some organizations are understaffed, that's true. But in general, it's about doing different. On the left-hand side of the page is what we see in traditional HR organizations that are transactionally focused, where you have some strategy, some consulting, and a high level, the big chunk is administrative. We're executing transactions, we're working through processes, we're getting things going through the administration of HR activities, and less so through the consulting or strategy. When we move to a more strategic organization, we cut out some of those inefficient processes. We focus less on the administration, more on the consulting, and more on the strategy. And what we'll show you in the next page is that, the next section, is that we start to see a different operating model to get there, right? It's not just about shaping it differently and doing process design, it's about elevating and leveraging the shared service center to do some of your processing, the transactional pieces. It's about using HR business partners to really understand and capture what the organization needs to do. And it's about executing against it with really deep expertise in the different HR functions, if you will. So I want to pull up here and hear from the room. And I see a hand already.
My question is this. Doesn't this start with your position description as far as really taking a close look at what you're supposed to do instead of reacting to everything that comes from management and reacting and getting it done? Shouldn't the focus should be more on what really is our job and how is that linked to the strategic plan? And shouldn't the position description, instead of being blanket for that type of position, shouldn't it be really focused on as far as what you're supposed to do?
Are you talking, when you're talking about the position description, do you mean for the HR community?
Yes, for each person in here, there should be a position description. And in that position description, it should outline what you're really supposed to do and how you're supposed to do it and how it's strategically placed within the organization.
Yeah.
It's just my question.
Yeah, well, the position descriptions certainly typically communicate kind of the broad speaking of what you are doing in an organization and what your role is. And there's different levels of what people do in different altitudes. So some folks are doing more of the transactional pieces of what we see, and some people are, from a position description, responsible for making that strategic connection to the business. We call the HR business partners. There's actually a role that we see across the private sector organizations that are doing that. Now, in the implementation of all of these pieces, whether you're a HR specialist in recruiting or staffing, classification, and so forth, you will have some integration with the business, and you have to take a mindset of the strategic understanding. So it's somewhat of how do we do the activities that are on our position description in the mindset of understanding what the business needs, as opposed to just transactionally what the position description says.
Yes, I'm just, I think that position descriptions may change, but I still got the same one from 30 years ago. So I know things change, and shouldn't they change as long as you do your job?
Well, and certainly your position description, your performance plans, and so forth should reflect what you're doing. We typically see across the private sector, the position descriptions are a much higher level than what you see classified in the public sector, right? So it's much broader than specific. What other questions out there? What makes it hard to be strategic with your business unit that you work with? What makes it easy?
Hi, I'm Anthony. I think what makes it hard is we're not let in on the ground floor like you're trying to do here. When they start planning and doing the strategic planning and what they're going to do in the fourth quarter or even the second quarter of next FY, we should be there. If we're there, we understand what's going on and we can get them the talent they need.
So what is the barrier there for you? Why aren't you in the conversation?
Well, that's what Tawana and Felicia and them working on now. Yeah, we should be there, and the HR business partners are the ones who are going to start going there now. But prior to this whole concept, we had HR specialists who were consultants by trade. So that was our normal job. So we would do that. We would be there and have customer service meetings, and we would talk to them about whatever, classification, staffing, training, processing issues, the whole 9 yards, and where they're trying to go. And it was starting to work, and then we flipped. So.
Okay. What else?
Hi. So I'm looking at the models that you have here, and I think we are that first pyramid there is us. So how do we get from that to this? Because I think we're largely, like he was saying, as far as the consulting goes, perhaps we need more of that within our organization. But the challenge or the question that I have is how do we now get from this to that model?
Yeah. There's a couple different answers to that. Some of it is different segmentation of how HR is structured. Who does what where. The shared service center is one of those things that are taking off some of that administrative burden, right? Some of it is, we tend to be an HR jack of all trades. I take in a request to hire, and then I look at the position description and I send it through, and it's coming back to me. I'm doing the vacancy announcement. I'm also looking at the certificate of eligibles, and I'm creating all of those. So I'm doing a lot of the things from an end-to-end perspective. So we're seeing actually more segmentation across HR, where people are getting more specialized. It creates some challenges, and I will go through that at the back end too. The other piece, though, is really doing good process design. How does the work flow? Especially as you're integrating a shared service center, the process can be a bit tricky at first, especially when they're external. So how are we actually navigating the process so the things that we push in and the things that they deliver on the back end are what we expected, right? I will say, as we move to the HRBP model, one of the things that people ask me all the time is how can we actually move to a more strategic organization when we're not transactionally perfect? And what we see from research is that you don't actually have to be transactionally perfect in order to become better strategic partners, right? You get better at the transaction piece when you have better inputs. So just by emphasizing that piece, you start seeing, okay, let's narrow the things that we're actually feeding into the shared service center. We're not sending them vacancy announcements after vacancy announcements. We're sending the few that actually matter. So we're getting good certificates, so they're making good selections, and those sort of things, so across the way. So all of that, like a lot of that input effort will help you kind of cut out some of those inefficiencies in the processes as well.
I want to follow that train of thought you've got going on. Do you have a few stories, success stories? I need a visual, a picture. For example, so I'm thinking there's some kind of change management in the people's minds that needs to take place from being an order taker to a consulting type of person. Yeah. And it's not just like we're all McDonald's hamburgers and we all look alike and you can just taste the same in Japan or Puerto Rico. But the thing is, so to move from consulting in a smaller bit to a larger consulting, what stories do you have? Are they coming up? What happened, especially in the context of a federal environment?
Yeah. So there's a couple of things with that, with changing the mindset. First, about the individual and how we as HR are going to the business differently. We actually have a program now that we do with a lot of our federal organizations around the HR Challenger, which is about how do we actually shift our mindset so that we're engaging, we're diagnosing, we're coming up with solutions and actually delivering against them with our organization. So how are we actually changing how we approach organizations. One of our organizations that isn't implementing the HRBP model is actually trying to become more strategic in just the interactions. Because one of the things that you have is when you as a person come to your business leader and say, here's the list of your vacancy announcements and here's their status, you're putting yourself in a transactional conversation, right? So why would they ask you about the strategic objectives if you're coming to them with the transactional? So some of it is about how do you actually reframe the conversation. Some of it's about leading with data. So taking a step back and taking a look at what does the data look like for this business unit and coming up with hypotheses about how do we actually do something different. And then the other side of it though is the business unit. One of the challenges that we see with shifting to an HRBP model is that the business leader has historically viewed HR as a transactional deliverer, right? I take orders, I execute against it, I deliver it back to you. So we have to be able to push them as well, because it's not just about us, it's about how they come to us. Starting with ourselves, starting with leading with data, starting with leading with the diagnosis conversation will help you get there, but it needs to be reinforced with the business leader understanding what they're doing, right?
I'd kind of like to address a couple of the questions. So we've been preparing the agency or preparing our organization, and it's been a slow preparation because we've wanted to take it a little bit slow to make sure that we are ready. So over the last couple of years, at least 2 years, we've been doing numerous things. So we've been getting our data ready. We've been building a dashboard. We've been training people. We've been working through certain things, working on our operational plans. So hopefully you've been looking at the operational plans by office, and hopefully you've seen some of the work for the overall operational plans. And with the operational plans, we've been working on those a little over a year. So now our operational plans are becoming a little bit different. We're working on actually, I guess what the word, we're grading them out almost and pulling more data into the operational plans where they're more metric based, and we're tying them into our workforce plan and human capital plan so they have more data in them. So with that, it's we're pulling more things into it so that it's built into our overall organization. So it's more strategic. It's tied into our actual strategic plan. So everything is it's tied into itself. So, now Charles and Rob are working on the the HRBP model. So everything is tied into itself so that everything is coordinated so that it's not piecemealed. So it's all kind of tied into each other so that we are going towards this model instead of doing one thing here, one thing there. It's all kind of tied into each other so you can actually see the progression so that our organization looks right, feels right, so that we are all prepared together so that you're, as an HR specialist consultant, once we actually deploy the whole thing, it feels right as an organization. So you're not thinking, oh my God, what just happened? Once we actually deploy everything, once our structure is in place, it feels right. And you won't think, what just happened to us? We weren't ready for this. It's been a gradual process. And once we deploy everything, you'll actually be able to see that it makes sense. And you'll see how everything kind of fits together. And you'll be able to kind of really see once you'll see how the pieces fit together. I'm kind of not saying that right, but you'll see how the operational plan and how the HRBP model and how everything really kind of fits together. Because you've seen and you've heard each of the pieces in the all hands meeting and your staff meetings and, working through each. We have our human capital strategic plan, our workforce plan. All of these things are all going to fit together. So it'll all work together. And I think you've seen all of that. And it'll actually work.
And that's a really good segue to the second section of.
This Human Capital Conference is, and as you take each of the courses, it'll all start to really make sense to you. And this is like a culmination of everything that you've been hearing over the last 2 years. And our dashboard, and once Alice can show you our dashboard, that's one of the presentations. You'll see all of this data and the demographics, which you'll have access to on a day-to-day basis to be able to do your jobs. This is all a part of this process.
You know, I think the key word is it's a process. It is. CEB has been studying HR line effectiveness for, 25 years now. And we have seen organizations starting to move into the HRBP model in the early 2000s or so, and they're still working on it, right? It is, again, a marathon. It takes tweaks. We are seeing challenges. Organizations that you would see, you know, from a private sector that you think they must have it down. Coca-Cola, Pepsi, Starbucks, Google. They're all grappling with the HR line effectiveness, and they're working towards this. They have the business partner models. It's not perfect. They're still adjusting. So the one thing that I will say as you embark on this is just know that it will take some tweaking over time. It's not going to be perfect at first, and every one of you plays a role, and we'll show the different pieces, and everyone brings their own expertise to the table. And your expertise is really important in actually being an effective HR shop, right? So let me show you a little bit what we studied starting on page 11. So what we looked at when we were trying to dig into what actually drives HR line effectiveness, we looked at a couple of things. So first, starting at the left-hand side, the enablers. How can HR improve effectiveness? And then we looked at two different components, the people. So who matters most to business line effectiveness, and activities? What activities are most important to drive effectiveness? Now, I want to emphasize here that the effectiveness is HR business line effectiveness. So making sure we're making that strategic connection that's feeding into our plans. Which drives through the HR line effectiveness, which does a couple things for us. Looking at the two right-hand side pieces, number one, the talent outcomes, performance, retention, attraction. And two, business outcomes. So in the private sector, that's revenue, profit, and cost. But in the public sector, that's mission achievement, that's efficiency, it's effectiveness, it's delivery of service to our public. So all of those things. So if we are better at understanding what the business line needs, we have the right people and we have the right processes and we're focusing on the right activities, then we can do these things on the right-hand side. You can see in the subnotes here what we mean by people, activities, and enablers. I'll leave that to you to take a look at. But let me show you what can happen if we actually improve our effectiveness. Moving on to page 12 here, two things that I pulled out. We have the same type of data for revenue and profit, but I thought these two pieces are actually more pertinent to the group here, as well as the other federal clients. First, on the left-hand side of the page, if we see an improvement in HR effectiveness, we can see between a 16 to 26% improvement on employee performance. If we get better, they get better. Same thing on the right-hand side. If we are better at our service delivery, if we understand what they need and we're delivering against that, we can see between a 20 and 32% increase in employee retention. What this is saying is if we move from a low effectiveness to a high effectiveness, we can see these gains. That's huge. If you're thinking about ROI of HR, you're getting better performance from your people, and people are staying. Huge outcomes, right? Takes a while. You know, it does take a while. You do have to get to how we looked at this basically was we looked at the lower quartile of HR effectiveness as judged by the service delivery and HR and the evaluation of the business leaders. And then we looked at the high 75%, right? So the top quartile of people who are organizations that were judged as effective at delivering the talent needs that the business needs. And this is the difference between the two in their level of retention and their level of performance. So there's not necessarily a time constraint here. It's not time bound per se because we're looking at organizations as one business unit or as one set at one point in time and looking at the comparison between the two. Now, I will say that as you are getting to that upper quartile, it's going to take time depending on where you started from. So you're not going to see a 26% boost in performance next year once you stand up the HRPP model. but you're going to start going in that direction. What else? And organizations have been transitioning over time. So the next page I want to pull up really quickly is on page 13. So this is somewhat of the historical view of the HR transition or transformation. What we saw in the 80s, that HR was typically an HR personnel shop. We provide administrative support, compliance support, so forth. So it was 80s to 90s. Across the globe, they moved in the 90s to the HR generalist model. And then starting in the 2000s, the HRBP model, which includes that strategic support to the line. Now, what we're seeing across the globe, the folks that are members of our organizations, about 92% of organizations globally are in that HRBP model. Now, when we had this conversation about a year and a half ago with the heads of HR across the federal government, most were in the HR personnel to HR generalists, with a couple in the HRBP model. So the federal government's getting there, it's moving in the right direction, but it's somewhat in the center page here. So it's back to the time frame. As you're moving, you have to get into the HRBP model in order to really achieve some of those outcomes. What's the percentage nationwide for federal? I actually don't have the specific results for everybody that's federal. What I can say anecdotally from the members that I work with, I have a handful that are HRBPs, that have HRBP models, some across DoD. A lot of the FIREA organizations have HRBP models. FIREA is primarily because they were stood up later and they don't have an embedded HR shop already. I will say the majority of organizations are going that direction. The ones that we work with, at least, and I work with about 150 across the U.S. and Canada.
So by the time they meet the business partner and time to change this to another strategic alliance, would that probably happen?
You know, the HRBP model has been around for about 15 years or 16 years, and we're not seeing organizations stepping off of it. We're seeing global organizations, private sector organizations, which ones are the ones that typically lead the charge of adjusting and innovating, they're sticking with it. So I think it's the direction that we're going to see lasting for quite a while. What that role looks like might adjust over time, and we've seen some adjustments to what they're doing, but it's typically overemphasizing that strategic role and maybe adjusting it in the structure. So give you an example, one of our organizations, they started with doing one business partner to a business unit. And as they were going through that, they wanted to actually segment the strategic part of that role. So there's one person that does strategic parts and other people that do the operations part of the strategic partner role. So they're segmenting it a little differently, but they're keeping that HRBP model in place. So what does that actually look like is what you see on the page. Now, this is a service delivery model, which is just a high-level visual of what the different components of HR are and what their main goals and objectives are. So just to break this down, in the center, the headquarters, I'm not going to go in order of the boxes, but you can kind of follow along. The center is the headquarters. So corporate HR strategy, the policies, the global approach, as we talk about it in the global sector. But in our approach, it would be the headquarters unit, right? We set the policies, we understand the overall priorities of the business, and we set the appropriate policies to do that. Moving kind of down to the lower left, the HR shared services. They're transactional activities. They're executing against things that we can put guardrails against, things that are highly process-oriented. Up at the top, the centers of excellence. Their expertise is deep functional expertise. You're not going to, with this model, have a jack of all trades in your HRBP. You're going to have people in the L&D function that have deep expertise in learning and development. You're going to have deep expertise in the ER, LR. You're going to have deep expertise in the classification. So they have those business units as well. And then the HRBP, which is on the lower right-hand corner. And this is the individual or a group of people, the people sitting in roles that are directly connecting to the business on workforce planning, on human capital strategic planning for that business unit. So playing it out, I'm an HRBP who works with my CIO shop. My business partner is my CIO. My responsibility is to understand what their priorities are. What is the IT priorities? Are we investing in cyber? Are we having challenges in acquiring X, Y, and Z skill sets? Those sort of things. And I bring it back to the table, and I'm working with my recruiters who know how to actually recruit for cyber. And I'm bringing them in when I need experts in those different fields, right? So you're playing it out as somewhat of a facilitator of the HR community. I'm not to know everything. What I'm supposed to do as an HRBP is to go to get the right expertise, work with the shared services to execute against it, and make sure that things flow appropriately. And of course, getting back to the bigger picture, the strategic priorities for HR, I'm to feed into the strategic planning what my business unit needs and aggregate it together with my other HR business partners. When we're talking about the breakdown, the variation of HR line support is explained by the different units. Yeah.
Hi. Have there been disadvantages going this route that you've experienced? And if there was, did you, what happened?
So disadvantages, I will say I'm going to take it a little bit different direction. One of the most complicated things of doing this is actually the interaction across HR. That's a tough thing, right? So you have people that are deep experts in certain things, but you have an HRBP that's coming in and kind of helping them guide what they should be doing. So there is natural tensions that are created by implementing this model. And what people tend to do, and we'll talk about this in the last section, they tend to try to navigate it or suppress, minimize those tensions. Where we're seeing the best organizations is actually leverage those tensions, because there's really good things that come out when you have different perspectives that come to the table. But that's one that's really kind of a hard thing to do. The other thing that we see as a kind of, not a disadvantage, but one thing that we have to break down is back to what the business comes to us with, right? So what you typically see what you see in a lot of organizations that have tried to set this up and have failed is that they spend a lot of time trying to be strategic, and they step back when their business unit talks to them about being transactional. So then you're doing a whole lot of work for not a lot of gain. So the objective there is to break that down is how do I continually come with data, how to continually ask the right questions so that we're minimizing that kind of potential negative by doing this. Does that make sense?
In a sense.
I have to clearly see things as you're speaking.
It's good.
Let me give you an example of something. I'm in a training arena, leadership and development. Someone from my program office, like CPD, comes to us. They need training for their staff. Now, should we be looking at CPD and say to them as a consultant, say, well, wait a minute, what is your strategic goals for your organization, where your weaknesses are within your strategic goals? And it's not about what you want, but it's what you need, and we should look at it from a higher level to say, no, that's not what you need, and this is not what you need. You may think that's what you need, but let's look at your actual strategic goals and see where your weaknesses are in those goals and where you need training, and then we'll work from there.
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
I just want to get clear.
One of the challenges you have with when a business unit has come with a decision already made is that you have to back them out of it. What the HRBP model helps you do is actually shepherds the conversation early so that you don't have to push them so hard. They're actually already in line with what you think that they should be doing. But absolutely, when you start thinking about like that barrier that you're trying to break down, asking those questions is going to help you no matter what, being more strategic. And I would recommend, whether you're a business partner, you're in L&D, you're in recruiting, even if you're in like the shared services transactional piece, is this actually right for your strategic priorities? It's back to that whole GS15 model, the GS15 request. Do you actually need that? Is that actually going to be what solves your problem? And Tuan is saying that shepherding the conversation is a good terminology to use. Yep.
Hi. I think it's the building of the trust.
Yeah.
And with the information, there's a lot of new information that's coming out. The POL process, getting them to understand this is really about helping them be the best that they can be. And when we do the customer service calls, we do have the various partners. We have the Allison Falcones, the people that are pulling data and inquiring or insisting that they, the program office, own what they're doing. So that they improve, we're telling them strategically how to get to the yes in most effective and efficient way.
Yeah.
So it's gaining an appreciation for a lot of new information that's evolving from Ochiko. And I think that's where the program officers are seeing where we really are adding value.
Yeah.
It's not going to happen overnight. And this is different. It's not just different for them, it's different for us.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's really different for us.
Yeah.
But we are coming with the mindset that we're not saying we're always right, but let's work strategically to get where you need to go. And our leaders are now really and truly there to encourage and to support us. So it's not just being told you can't tell your customer no, but let's work to that yes, and we're doing it in a different way.
Yeah.
And I think it's a little uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But as long as we come with an attitude and an aptitude that we can get there, and we have made significant changes. And I think the program offices, when we have our customer service meeting, they're now appreciating us in a very different way. So we are insisting that they look at the data and that they evaluate the process in which they've been accustomed to using the materials and the numbers to get to a bigger appreciation and understanding in the transactional concept that we're doing, because we are not order takers anymore.
Yeah. One of the most simple questions that I hear HR professionals use when they're talking to their business unit is, what challenge are you trying to solve? Like, help me understand, right? I'm not saying no. I just need to understand what's happening so that I can help you the best way possible. You guys are the experts. They're not the experts. Let's be honest. I think they are. I know when I was in HR, when I was in my last organization, people would come to me with solutions all the time, and I'm like, not really the right thing. Help me understand what you're trying to solve. Because if I can understand what you're trying to solve, I can actually deliver something that's going to get you the solution that you need, right? So just ask the question. And I will tell you that some leaders, at least at first, may be resistant to giving you an answer to that. They may not know. They may not know what they're actually trying to solve. Push them. Ask them. I can't help you if I don't understand what your challenge is. I can do a whole lot of stuff, but it may not actually give you what you need. And it's a great question. It turns it back on them in a really opening way, as opposed to just saying, no, that's not the right solution. Help me understand. So pretty easy things to just add on that will help you in the long run. Let me show you a little bit about what we're seeing the HRBPs look like. And even, I mentioned there's tensions between HR, different roles in HR. There's also tensions within the business, the HRBP role itself, because they play a lot of different roles. We brought this page in, and I know not everyone is HRBPs, and not everyone wants to be HRBPs, but it's important to know the different things that this role will do, because it is different than what we've traditionally seen in organizations. So on the left-hand side of the page, on the upper left-hand side of the page, the operations manager. Now this is the traditional HR specialist, end-to-end service specialist for a business unit. I understand what's transactions, I'm making sure that happens. That is definitely a role that the HRBP plays. I understand what's going in and out of my shop that I'm working with. I'm helping you shepherd that through. Down on the bottom, emergency responder, think like a IT talent need that pops up. There are going to be some of those fires that you have to put out. There's going to be some things that weren't expected that the HRBP has to deal with. Over on the lower right, the employee mediator. This is not replacing ER and LR, but this is being a first line of defense, right? providing people with guidance of how to have performance conversations, feedback conversations, identifying when there is an issue that ER should step in on or LR should step in on before it becomes a huge issue, right? Navigating some of those kind of lower level, kind of little fires before it becomes big fires and we actually need to do something big with it. And then in the upper right-hand corner, strategic partner, which crafts and implements enterprise-wide strategies to chronic challenges. And when we say enterprise-wide strategies, it's enterprise-wide for that business unit in this case. Your enterprise-wide strategies for HR will still be coming out of your recruiting shop with your recruiting strategy for HUD, your learning strategy for HUD, right? But there's going to be business strategies that they have, an IT strategic workforce plan, for example. So these are the different roles, and you can see how they actually interplay with each other. For example, emergency responder looks at acute challenges, little challenges, minor challenges that happen independently of each other, versus chronic challenges, things that happen routinely in the organization. Think chronic challenges, one of the challenges might be a low score in engagement on career opportunities for a business unit. That's a chronic challenge that we need to solve. It may not be organization-wide, but it's certainly for that business unit, so we need to do something about that. Right? When we look at what makes the most sense or makes the most impact, it's no surprise that that strategic partner role is the most impactful of those 4 roles when it comes to understanding the needs of the business and driving that strategic alignment. So you can see here that, we're going to compare, I'll compare here emergency responder to business partner. And you can see it's about 2.5%, 2.3% higher than just responding to fires. And it's even higher than that operations manager. So you get the most impact when you focus your time and activities on that strategic kind of priority discussion with the business unit. And I would say when you're thinking about your role, if you are in the center of expertise or center of excellence, it's the same idea, but you're refocusing the strategic part onto the function and not to the business unit, right? So I'm thinking strategically about what we're doing for recruiting for HUD. I'm thinking strategically about what we're doing for learning for HUD, right? And that role is going to be the biggest impact on our ability to be effective as HR. On 18 here, I'm not going to drill through this, but I have defined the roles. So get back to the position description. What does this look like? Here's the roles that we typically see the organization playing, the activities that the HRBP is playing. You can see that the HRBP, the strategic partner role, is highlighted here in light blue, and that's because it has the greatest talent outcomes. If I understand what the workforce plan is for the business unit, I will be able to do other things better. Right? On page 19, we have the competency model here, and I'm not going to drill through this here, but one thing I want to point out is that what you don't see on the page is deep expertise in an HR function. You see talent management acumen, you see business acumen, and organizational acumen in the middle of the page here. The reason for that is that as an HR business partner, you're not an expert in everything. That's not the intent of the role. The intent of the role is to know enough about HR, to talk with people about HR, to know when you need to tap into your partners across your HR function to deliver on those strategic priorities, right? Things like problem solving, matrix management, on the lower left-hand corner, conflict resolution, and then on the upper, leveraging networks, using your people, using your team to actually deliver on the strategic needs of the organization. Making sure that the learning strategy aligns with what you guys need, and then leveraging that to actually deliver against your business unit objectives. So I say this all to highlight the different things, the different roles that organizations play in this model, that the people play in this model, to really start delving into what will this look like for HUD in the future. So for our last part of the conversation, I want to just pull up, I'm going to go to page 21, and talk a little bit about some of those challenges. And then we'll pull up for a discussion. I'd like to hear kind of what you guys are seeing, if these are things that are challenging to you, and more specifically, if they're challenges that you've faced in interacting across different business units that you've broken down and what you've done. So keep that in mind as we're going through this. So as I've mentioned, CEB studied this model for 20 years. And our last study on this was about standing up the business aspect of it. So what are the infrastructure that we need to have in order to deliver against it? And one of the core challenges that we had was that there's true coordination challenges across HR. Because we're playing different roles, we need to lift up and look around HR to really understand what each other is doing, because there's these tensions that are created that we need to navigate. So give you an example here, starting at the HR Centers of Expertise and going down to the HR BP. The tension is that HRBPs are tasked with customizing solutions for business units. And Centers of Expertise are standardizing and scaling solutions for the organization. Give you an example, learning function. I'm creating learning programs, a leadership program for HUD as a Center of Expertise or Center of Excellence. In the business unit, I'm actually looking at leadership gaps that we have in our business unit and trying to fill them. So a bit of a tension there. Scalable solution versus acute needs. On the left-hand side of the page, between shared services and HR Centers of Expertise or Excellence, the shared services wants to ensure that the organization complies with performance management processes, while the COEs wants to ensure best practices. Think about some of the challenges you have with executing hiring actions versus your recruiting needs. Think about that sort of tension that's created. We need to be compliant with X. Well, I need you to do this. That sort of tension. And on the bottom, between shared services and HRBPs, HRBPs want to support talent strategy with metrics, but the shared services only can collect scalable metrics. Give you an example of that, quality of a hire versus time to hire. We tend to run to time to hire because that's what we can actually track in our system, right? But we need, as an HRBP, to communicate ROI on what we're actually doing. So real tensions that are occurring across the organization. In the last couple of pages, talk about how we're seeing organizations actually navigating that. And I know we're a little early on in the conversation here with what you're standing up, but it's important to consider this because it is going to be a reality that I think you can start to solve before you actually are really standing up this different infrastructure. So before I move to what we're seeing organizations doing, are there any questions or thoughts on this page in particular? Nope. Okay. All right, so let's go ahead and go to page 22. So top-down responsibility. So what we typically see organizations doing to solve these challenges are two things. Number one, on the left-hand side of the page, they do a top-down delineation of roles and responsibilities. You do this, you do this, you do this. That's your role. On the other side, kind of the other swing of the pendulum, is shared accountability across HR. Shared metrics, or MBOs, major business objectives, a line item in your performance plan that's shared across our organization. Those are the things that we typically see organizations doing. The challenge is this doesn't actually have much impact on minimizing the tensions that we see. So it doesn't have a much ability for us to actually navigate those tensions. It actually creates more. So let me show you what this looks like on page 23. So what we're seeing, if we focus on leveraging tensions, things like understanding of cross-HR workflows. How does my work as an HRBP impact the L&D expert or the shared services person? If I can understand that, I'm better off at leveraging the differences between the business units than if I just separate myself from what my role is compared to theirs. And the same thing with flexibility to negotiate roles. And what we mean by flexibility to negotiate is actually coming to the table and figuring out in a project who owns what, right? So think about back to that leadership need for an organization. You have the leadership development group, you have me as an HRBP coming to the table and saying, this is the problem we're going to try to solve. What can we do as a team? What's your role, what's my role as a team? And we can flex based on the needs of the organization. As compared to what we saw before, which is minimizing tensions, when you look at minimizing tensions on the right-hand side, you can see a 5% impact, but it's compared to that of greater impact on the navigating workflows and negotiating flexibility. Do you guys think you have a good sense as to what everybody else does here and how their work flows between one to another? No? What have you guys done to try to solve some of that? Have you started to kind of try to break that down? It's something we see across the board, and organizations struggle with it. This is not something that's HUD specific, I will sadly say. But it is something that you do need to start navigating and start thinking about. How do my partners, the people I work with every day, do their work so I can be better at doing my own? And one of the studies that we have that's separate from this is called Driving Breakthrough Performance, which we start talking about individual task versus enterprise contribution. And what we're seeing is that people are being asked to do more, and the only way that they can actually do that is if they work together in a different way. And that's certainly true in HR. I cannot do everything myself and meet my individual objectives. I need to work with others to do that. So let me show you what Milestone did, which is a case study on negotiation forum. We have another case study that I'll send to the group after this on kind of understanding workflows. But I did highlight Milestone, which is about navigating the responsibility in the negotiation forum. So essentially what Milestone did is they actually brought together peers in an annual routine basis, and then sometimes on a kind of a project-based basis to really figure out who's going to be doing what on the different activities or processes. So you see on the left-hand side of the page here, the HR peer negotiation forum, where they looked at the objective of managing the tension. So who's going to do what as we're implementing this strategic plan that we have? How are we going to actually execute this with the different competing priorities of the HRBP versus shared services versus headquarters versus the centers of expertise? They brought together senior representatives from the centers of expertise, senior representatives from the HR shared services, senior HRBPs or selected HRBPs, to talk about the different approaches to the broad priorities of HR. Sample of issues that they discussed in these sessions, things like redundant distribution of responsibilities across HR, things that I'm kind of doing but you're kind of doing, things that we can actually get better at. Think about that triangle of the inefficient processes. Redundancy is certainly one of those, right? Inefficient decision-making processes. How can we get better at making good decisions? How can we flow the decision-making process better so that we're making them more quickly? And breakdowns in knowledge transfer across HR groups. If I don't know as an HRBP what the recruiting function is doing, or the recruiting function doesn't understand what I need as a business partner, we're going to be doing a whole lot of stuff that's not going to actually deliver on our objectives. The results you see, every meeting that they have come out with results where they have defined processes, challenges, opportunities, and then actions. Give you the example on the employee engagement strategy, which I know is near and dear to HUD's heart at the moment. Coordination challenges, HRBP does not have sufficient data to inform engagement strategies. So the coordination opportunities, Employee Relations Service tracks metrics associated with employee engagement. In their world, the Employee Relations Group actually tracks that type of thing. Actions taken, HRBP organized quarterly meetings with employee relations to identify trends in engagement. So you guys have an engagement team here. It would be something similar to that. Me as an HRBP, I work with the engagement team to really understand what are the big ticket trends that are happening before it ever becomes an issue. Let me look at my exit survey information, my EVS survey, any pulse surveys, anything like that, the things that we're hearing and seeing, to give us information to inform us in our conversations with our business unit. Trick is there, I'm coming to the business unit before there's an issue. I'm seeing trends. I'm coordinating with other parts of HR so that I can be better informed to come to the business unit. Or the talent sourcing piece here, recruiting struggles to obtain critical information about talent needs from the line management. I've heard this issue over and over and over again. We end up doing recruiting as job fairs instead of strategic sourcing, because we're not really quite sure what the business unit actually needs, because they don't tell us. That's a problem. It's a huge problem. In the center, recruiting has the resources, to guide line managers through the hiring need definition. So the HRBP needs to take those and help them. That's their role. I'm helping our recruiting staff implement what they need and get what they need by my role as HRBP. So again, it's about identifying who's doing what to solve the problems that you have in a consolidated way, right? On the next page here, some do's and don'ts for constructive HR responsibility negotiations. So at the top, prepare for the negotiations. Define some parameters. Do establish a common framework. Do focus negotiations on specific processes, so specific issues that you're trying to solve. Draft a proposed distribution of work. Who's doing what? Come out of the meeting with that type of objective. And on the bottom, don't focus on broad role negotiations. This is about solving a problem that HR is facing and who's going to do what to solve it. It's not broad, it's specific. Don't allow each HR group to select their own responsibility framework. So don't let everyone just kind of go off and do what they want to do. It's cohesive, right? Don't limit the participation to a small group of obvious stakeholders. Who's actually doing the work? Right? Get those folks in seat to have the conversation about who's actually going to be executing against the negotiations that you're having, making sure you're taking them into consideration. And then as you negotiate and you actually facilitate the discussion, clearly communicate the goal. If you're meeting in a negotiation forum and you don't know what the problem is, you don't know what the goal is of the meeting, don't have it. There's no point to having a meeting with no goal in mind. Wow, okay. So that's another lesson takeaway. More broadly speaking, typically have an objective for meetings, have the goals in mind. I will say that's actually, that point there, it's hugely impactful when you can do it right. It's hard to do sometimes, but always when you walk into a meeting, especially if you're organizing it, what's your agenda? What's your objective? What's success look like to you? That will make you a better HR professional, bar none. And quite frankly, if you set the agenda, you own the meeting. Just saying. Just saying. It's something that I've personally had to learn, right? I've had to think about this in every meeting I go into, because we don't have enough time to waste time. So, and especially in this milestones all the same thing. So clearly communicate the goals. Make sure that stakeholders are prepared, that they have the relevant information to have the dialogue. And sometimes you'll want to have a neutral third-party mediator to negotiate it. If it is a big ticket item, have somebody that's not involved in the conversation, that doesn't play into the actual process to actually navigate that conversation. Because at the end of the day, your objectives are the same, our goals are the same. It may just be perspectives that are different, and keep that in mind. Don't frame negotiations on the bottom half the page as an opportunity to assign sole ownership of activities. This conversation is not about me giving Tawanda, here's your process, you do it. It's about how we're working together to deliver on an objective, right? There's a couple other ones here. On the bottom, there's a couple tips to include. So appointing a moderator for each negotiation session who has no clear stake in the distribution of responsibilities, can clearly articulate the correct application, is capable of managing competing personalities or egos, right? Everyone has a perspective. Yep. And as she's walking up, provide the escalation channel to HR leadership for resolving statements in negotiation. If there is something that you can't solve, look to your leadership.
I would like to really rely on your expertise and for you to be thinking about us as a whole. I think our management has done an absolutely wonderful job of trying to get us organized, trying to get us all to see things. I really compliment them bringing you into this picture.
Thank you.
But one of the things that is going on, and this is something that was going on from a while back, it's not just now. 20 years ago in the field, there were administrative service centers. And most of the people that were in this, that are in this audience that worked in the field were assigned to those centers. Then about 10 years ago, those centers were disbanded. And then because of that, some of the people that are in the field are kind of like orphans. They don't always know what assignments they have. They don't always know what should be going on. When you started this whole presentation, I was scared of where you were going, because those orphans are the ones that sometimes have an incredible impact on the organization, because they're still connected to the regional directors, the regional administrators, they're still connected to the field office managers. And what I would really like to get out of your session, and I know management will be thinking about this, at least I hope they will, that, okay, when we all go away from here, how do we build up that connection between the decisions that are making at headquarters and then the decisions in the field, the effectiveness of not just headquarters, but also the effectiveness of the field. And I really would like to see, we have extreme talent in the field, in my opinion, that those people in the field would have the opportunity sometimes to just shine a little bit and to show what they can do too. So, because it breaks down to these, what can you do in a certain situation, all of a sudden somebody will call you and boom, you're right engrossed in that critical issue, whatever critical issue they have. And there's not time to call headquarters or anything, it's what can you do in order to make this better? So.
There's a couple of things that I think about with that, and we certainly, my old organization had 2,900 field offices, 52 HR units across the country. And we were navigating that from headquarters, trying to stand up a kind of a semblance of an HRBP model where we were doing that for just staffing and classification. And that was certainly an issue, and especially where we're doing staffing in one central unit, but we have the expertise of the business unit out in the field. There's a couple things. One, thinking about and embedding your knowledge as a stakeholder or somebody that has that business unit specific is going to be really important for the HRBP that has that business unit to serve, right? So it may not be the person that's always sat there that will be the HRBP for that role, but they should actually be integrating with you, especially during doing a long-term transition, to understand what's happening, so that you're actually integrated more formally through that discussion, because you will have more and they will come to you, and your business units will come to you that you've traditionally served because you geographically co-located with them. That's just a reality of what's going to happen. The other piece is especially if you're not the HRBP, to bring them in when those conversations happen, because that's their primary role. They are to make that connection between the business unit and all of the other stuff that's happening. So theoretically, if it's played out correctly, we will start getting more of that business knowledge up front. So some of those fires will start to kind of fizzle out, or you will actually have a better understanding from what the strategy is, because you're creating more of those connections between the different business units, between HR, centers of expertise, you in the field. You're actually making a more formal connection to what's happening. It's not going to be easy, though. I think part of the challenge that you see in geographically dispersed functions is that it's easy to kind of look down at your own desk and stop looking around. And that's a challenge that all of you have to struggle with and navigate, because you all have your different desks that you're sitting in. And that's where that workflow thing is really important, right? So going back to that kind of tension that you have, making sure that your business partners understand and your centers of expertise understand what it's like in the field to actually navigate some of the things that your partner's coming to you for. The other thing I will say from the business partner perspective, meaning the business unit that's coming to you with questions or coming to you with fires, the question I would have is it a fire that we need to put out right now? And sometimes it is, and we need to escalate it, and sometimes it's not. But I think some of those challenges will start solving as you start creating better connections with the different business units across. It'll feel a little bit different, though.
So, and part of this, I hope everybody has the opportunity to meet with their employee relations, they talk to their employee relations people in the field, or their staffing, whatever, training, whatever. We all have opportunities to talk.
Do you guys have forums where you get together virtually on the different communities of practice? If you're all the ER people, do you guys get together and the staffing people get together?
I can only speak for HUD Learn, and we do have monthly conference calls.
Because that is one of the things that we see, kind of back to making the connections. Geographically dispersed organizations have the challenge of having presence, right? you can be geographically dispersed, but if you don't make the connections, you're going to be challenged at actually delivering services in general. So really kind of focusing first on how do I make myself present is going to be important. I have a colleague, my direct colleague worked in Boston for a while, and now I have a new one in Chicago, and we're seamless between the two of us. People don't know that we have been geographically co-located or geographically dislocated, I guess, for a long time. It seemed to everybody that we served that we sat next to each other. And that's the trick.
Can I share one thing?
Yeah.
I've learned since leaving headquarters. We work very closely with the regional support managers in the field who do a lot of mini HR functions for us. So our relationships are critical because we engage with the ELR staff, the regional support managers who do our front line as far as the recruiting when we don't have a human capital person there. So we partner and allow the regional administrators, the deputy regional administrators to know that we are here to serve in that capacity. So we will partner by often outreach to those individuals so that the customer doesn't suffer by not having an HR presence, perhaps in a physical location. Sure. But that's the engagement. And oftentimes that extra email or the phone call so that we can keep the bridge moving and be effective in what it is we're trying to accomplish.
Yeah, and the key verb there is partner, right? And that's one of the reasons that organizations have moved from calling HR their business unit customers. They're partners. I'm not serving you. I'm partnering with you to deliver on our objectives, our talent objectives, right? When we start getting into learning, the centers of expertise from our research, we call them learning advisors. We call them talent advisors in recruiting. We call them HRBPs in HR, right? There's not a customer service necessarily component in the sense of me being a service to you. We deliver a service, yes, but in a partner and an advisory capacity, right? We are just about at time. Really quickly, a couple questions to look at. And I noticed that the verb here was wrong here. How can we accurately capture the talent needs of the organization? So key question for us, how can we capture the talent needs of the organization? 2, how do we integrate the business needs into our talent systems and processes? Right? How do we pull in that information and make sure that the things that we're doing, broadly speaking, actually reflect what the business needs are? And then how do we coordinate across different components of HR so that we're executing and implementing effectively? We're getting the information from the line, we're feeding it to the right place, we're designing strategies that make sense for our business as well as for HR, and then we're delivering against them. Now, on the last page here, I'm not going to run through it, but it is your cheat sheet for the day. If somebody asks you what you took away, just read off the page. You've learned at least 6 bullets. So the key takeaways, essentially at the end of the day, we're seeing HR organizations moving to the HRBP model because they need to drive strategic alignment. It is the most critical thing that you can do as an HR function is understand what those talent objectives are, because that's what our role is. We are champions of talent in the organization, and we need to know what our organization needs in order to actually deliver against it. So I want to thank you for your time. We have 2 more minutes, so if there's any final questions in the room or comments, we have time for probably 1 or 2. And if not, I think I'm standing between you guys and lunch, so it's up to you guys. Thank you.
Thank you, Liz. That was great.
Thanks.
Wow, again, thanks. What a thoughtful presentation and great dialogue. Sitting up here, every commentator, you may have seen it, heads were nodding. So great feedback. What a terrific morning. So a couple housekeeping things. We are headed into a lunch break. When we return, we'll be going to different spots for this afternoon. Our staffing folks, you'll see, will reconvene at 1 o'clock, so you get a nice lunch break. Staffing will be down in B176 for a presentation by OPM. The rest of us will be up back here on the topic of HR of the Future, also a presentation by OPM. Now, we talked about sort of a family reunion. We've talked about this session about the different parts of Ochiko. I understand, like any family reunion, we have a chance for pictures. I'm looking back at Robin, who's nodding. So we have a photographer over to your right. If you want to gather with your division or your office, we have an opportunity for group pictures, which really is kind of a nice thing. It's rare we're all together. So Robin, do you want to, don't sneak away. I saw she's sneaking away there. Do you want to point where people should go? It'll only take a few minutes, so if you want to gather with your office, it's a chance for a photograph. And then it'll only take a few minutes, and we'll reconvene back here at 1 o'clock. Thank you so much for your energy and input this morning.